welcome to another episode of Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom. I'm Paul.
I'm Barbara.
I just got a text from somebody that said, hello, I'm the driver who will pick you up from JW Marriott to the Fort Myers airport. I'm not sure about the date. Is it giving scam?
Yeah, I was just going to say, is that a spam? And when you click on it?
It didn't. It just has like the number, but it doesn't say possibly spam. So I'm like, what's this area? I think I might just leave that in the archives.
Don't click on it.
There's nothing to click though. You always say that. I can click on the text. I just can't click on it.
I don't even click on the text. I just delete it right from there. I don't even click on it to open up the text.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned because I don't have any plans to go to Fort Myers, so I don't know about that one. So unless someone has a hit out for
Myers, that's Florida.
Yeah, so I'm like, unless somebody has a hit out for me and they just expose themselves, I don't really know what that's about. But okay, should I go? Maybe it's a nice getaway.
There you go. My God, they had pumpkin bagels at ShopRite.
I'm done with the shop. Every time there's something about ShopRite. I hope they're listening. You talk about ShopRite every episode.
Because I don't do big food shopping. I just go
and pick some little things up here and there.
Yes, because I hate big food shopping. So today I just went to go make
I'm sorry.
Chili.
What is big food shopping? Just say that one time. Big food shopping.
Like a lot all at one time. Like,
got it.
You know what I mean? Like coming in with 10 bags.
Got it. You're not a mass consumption shopper.
I'm not a bulk shopper.
She's not a BJ's, a Costco.
I mean, I'll hit Sam's once in a while, but yeah. But for the most part, I go a couple times a week because then I just grab things and I don't know what I'm in the mood for. So today when I went, I knew I was just going to go and I needed beans and some stuff for the chili.
Not beans, girl.
And I saw pumpkin bagels, and then I saw pumpkin cream cheese, pumpkin creamer. I was all into it.
You were such a basic bitch. I can't.
I'm a fall bitch.
You're our fall bitch.
So I came home and I had a hot cup of chai pumpkin spice tea.
Girl.
With pumpkin cream.
You have Uggs on too and a flannel? It's Taylor Swift playing in the background.
And I did a pumpkin bagel and then I put some pumpkin cream cheese on it.
Okay, pumpkin.
That was my breakfast.
Bye, pumpkin.
No, not yet.
No, it's the New York reference to pumpkin on Flavor of Love. Bye, pumpkin. Oh. Yeah. I can't wait to say bye, pumpkin.
Flavor Flav.
Girl. Goodbye. That pumpkin's about you acting crazy.
I got a pumpkin candle. They had candles.
And you have pumpkin Febreze.
Sweet cinnamon pumpkin, it was called.
All I know is you and Brett gotta have a headache every time you walk in the damn door then. The fumes are gonna get you guys.
It's just a candle. No, it's only when I light it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have like sprays and stuff.
No sprays. That's where we draw the line of pumpkin.
Yeah, because then it becomes overwhelming.
Got it. We didn't stop at the bagels, the spreads, the lattes, the soups, the candles, but the spraying is where we draw the line.
Spray is too much. That's right. Then we call it quits at the sprays.
Well, it feels very eventful over there.
Yeah,
a trip to ShopRite can really change a day.
Can change a day.
Well, your trips to ShopRite sound like my trips to the dry cleaners because I'm like you. I don't do bulk dry cleaning. I go and pop in. Like, I think now I'm cheating on my original dry cleaners with another dry cleaner up the street because they got me fucked up there. So I can't deal with the drama that's coming with the dry cleaner anymore. I feel too connected to it personally.
Oh my gosh. A lot of drama with the dry cleaner.
You were on the phone with me the last time on FaceTime because I walked in. Mind you, I've been going to the local dry cleaners. I love supporting local businesses. I mean, most of the dry cleaners out here are like mom and pop owned.
Yeah.
But somebody put me onto this one. They do a great tailoring job, which is for a short king like myself. We need to make sure that the pants are fitting the way that they should be. Right. So
perfecto.
Yeah, exactly. So I've gone there for about a year. Shit's getting a little bit sloppier. From the presentation, the customer service, and the quality of my dry cleaning. So I've gone in there the last couple times, and the girl at the front, God bless her soul, she's been a little lit up and on. I've been in there, and
She's been enjoying life a little too much on the job.
yeah. And listen, we need some things to help us get through the day. So look, if
I mean, you
she,
even got a hug.
I mean, I was there.
Hello, Virgo.
Yeah, she is a fellow Virgo. We learned.
We
So
learned a lot.
she came across the counter and gave me a hug because we're Virgos. But the thing that I'm starting to get a little concerned about is she's not remembering me. Like she
You said, "What's your name again?"
yeah, like she's giving me hugs. We're having these deep, intimate moments where I'm just a nice person. I get stuck in these situations. So I'm like sitting through her umpiling that her man's cheating on her and she was going to go to his house after work and fuck him up. And he left her outside on the curb and she was mad and she's a little bi-curious. Like, I'm and listen, I'm here to be a sound shoulder for you to give your,
Yes, even if it's from your cleaner.
yeah. And I don't mind it. The issue that I'm now having is that the body of work is not performing as it once did.
Yeah.
So I brought a shirt there after many items, and it was this really
His favorite shirt.
I just got it. It's this really sleek white Hugo Boss shirt. It's like silk.
Very
And
soft. You liked it.
as we know from listening to the podcast, I profusely sweat in my armpits. I will probably have to take this shirt after I go as well. So I went there to drop it off just because, it was a hot day. I was sweating. It doesn't even need to be hot. I'm just sweating and it's white. I didn't want it to get start staining up. So I took it there and I had just like, hey, just give it the full care of love, give it a nice dry clean, press it. And those little armpit lines are probably a little funky. So if you could just check them out.
Right.
I go
extra cleaner.
Yeah, a little extra care there. A little spritz, but no pumpkin. So I was like, okay, I pick it up. Normally, she asked me again what my name was after we had a heart-to-heart for 30 minutes and we had a bonding
Right, when you
experience.
dropped it off.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I go to pick that shirt up. I am such, as we've talked about this, nitpicky Virgo. Chana, astrology mom, has given us some insight on my character as a Virgo.
Correct.
And I looked at this and there was this orange, like circular crumb on one of the buttons. And I went to just like pick it off. It went down and was like wet and like smeared down the shirt. How could it be wet? I just picked it up. So I was like, that someone must have been eating over it, or I don't know what was happening.
And then put the plastic bag over it when you picked it up.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I know I'm going to be back there because I always drop stuff off. So I go in there and I tell them, hey, this has happened. I spotted this on my shirt. They've tried to press it, I think, like 3 times or clean it 3 times.
Well, first you called me and you said, Mom.
Yeah. I said, do I want to be this person?
And I said, yes, you need to go back in. They have a mark, an orange mark on a white shirt now.
I know. And the whole point of me, and this is the moral of the story, is that I was struggling with doing it. But then I thought, you bring something to the dry cleaners to fix it, not make it worse.
Right.
So after 3 times of trying to clean it, it hasn't come out. And they told me to come back and speak to one of the family members. That's the owner. And I haven't done it yet because I've been like, I think that I don't know. We don't know how it's going to go yet. If they're going to take care of it.
The problem is she going to remember that she told you to come back?
I know.
When one of the other family members are there.
So I'm just mentally preparing myself of what I'm stepping into, but I feel like I'm going to have to break up with them. It just I feel too interconnected. It feels heavy.
Yeah, I agree.
I had to stop her from getting in her car the one day to drive to
Oh
the
my gosh,
house.
yes. Yeah.
It just feels like too much responsibility for me to just get a shirt dry cleaned here and there,
It's a big thing. It's like breaking up with a hairdresser. It's like, yeah.
It is. It's heavy.
It's heavy.
So waking up in the day, my dilemma is, geez, what dry cleaner am I going to go with? So today's episode is actually perfect to talk to Laura Felman, who is a clinical social worker. She is a part of the Hamlet therapy family who If anybody recalls, Dr. Alex Hamlet was on episode 3 of our podcast about having a favorite child.
Yes.
So shout out to Dr. Alex. We love her.
We do.
And Laura was so kind enough to agree to come on. We would love to welcome to the podcast Laura Felman. I shouldn't be this excited to talk about high functioning depression, but I actually am. Today we have clinical social worker, and we're excited to chat with her further about the hot topic of high functioning depression. Welcome, Laura.
Welcome, Laura. Well, wait, I want to put my glasses on to see you first and say hi, and then I'm instructed to then take them off.
You guys are so funny.
Hi.
You can keep them. It's just like you just have this glare sometimes, Mom. I hate it.
I know. And then I'm like, I have like questions. So I'm
Okay,
like,
keep them on. Just keep them on then. Keep them on.
Are you sure? Is it too glary?
It's okay. We'll make it work. It's your voice that matters.
Exactly. Well, it's so nice to meet you, Mom.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. I totally agree with you, Paul. I feel excited to be able to talk about this, especially because I definitely think high functioning depression is on the rise for so many reasons. One, because we are really reinforced to mask our emotions and pretend like things are okay when they are not. And the social media impact and how much more social media there is in the world and how that pulls for social comparison, it reinforces even more our desires to pretend like things are okay.
I am so passionate about the topic of high functioning depression. I even, did research upon you joining us today, and there really is not that much out there. I feel like this is a topic that's kind of slowly building momentum, and it's getting a lot more recognition, where I don't even think maybe 2 years ago it even existed, like, us being aware of it or even talking about it.
Yeah.
What is high functioning depression?
Despite it being a really common type of depression, you're absolutely right in that it's like not something that we are actually hearing about or talking about. High functioning depression is a really common type of depression. Depression doesn't look the same for everyone. There's actually like wildly 1,019 different iterations of how depression can manifest. And high functioning depression is one of those manifestations. So it's not a clinical diagnosis, but it's a widely understood term to understand a condition where someone is struggling to take care of themselves internally, but on the outside, they're kind of looking like things are all together.
Yeah.
So symptoms may include internally, feeling sad, feeling helpless, hopeless. It might be feeling disinterested in things that used to bring them joy. So it's, it may be someone's feeling like for a while they were really motivated to, go back to tennis. I don't know why that came to mind, but like try a new activity or even like start a new show, right? Like it can be like low energy behaviors. And then all of a sudden it might just be starting to feel kind of disinterested in things that used to bring them joy. You might start experiencing changes in your eating habits. So it could look like all of a sudden, you are noticing that you're not eating as much as what you once were. You're kind of losing appetite. On the other end, it could be that you notice that it's hard to satiate yourself and you're actually eating more. You might find that, you're having difficulty concentrating. You might be more susceptible to like just judging yourself, waking up in the morning and just feeling like, ugh, like I look terrible or I can't do this. I'm not good at my job. This kind of like negative expression towards yourself. And that might also manifest towards others. It might be like, I just can't deal with anyone right now.
You're like I'm out.
Yeah, like, the first thought in the day being like, ugh, I can't do this.
But then you do get up and do it. So that's where the functional comes in, correct?
Yeah. So the difference between, major depression and high functioning depression is that it's common for people with major depression to have trouble actually following through on the responsibilities that they, have each day. In order to meet a disordered level, it means that the symptoms are causing clinically significant distress and impairment. With high functioning depression, it's describing people who live with these symptoms, but it's all internal and underneath the surface, because on the outside, they're totally managing to keep up with their responsibilities. And so they really might appear as if it's all good, but really we know they're hanging on by a thread.
I feel like this topic, like I feel so connected to it, and meaning passionately why I stand behind it is because just when I've heard you even already talk about it in my own research, it's like, I think everybody can relate to some degree of like they look so well put together, but you're like, bitch, on the inside, I'm breaking down every second. I'm like, I'm hanging on by a thread, like you said, and I'm like, that's how I feel, like it's obviously we always outwardly present what we want people to see and try to keep up with that, but on the inside I'm like, oh my god, it sounds dramatic, but you're like, I'm exhausted just trying to like be put together and polished and be the way that I want to be perceived. And I wake up the way that you said, you kind of start the day already like, ugh, and then not instead of in an empowered way of kind of already starting the day.
And this is actually why this high functioning depression might actually last longer than if someone were to, meet maybe more criteria for a major depressive disorder initially, because, there's kind of this like facade for so long that the person has it all together. And so it might last longer because one, the environment might not notice really that something's going on. And so the person might, it might take longer to have this person get help. The person themselves might also not even recognize that, like, oh, this is what's going on
Right.
here. There's no such thing as a necessity for treatment. Like, no one has to be like impaired enough or sick enough to come to treatment. But that feeling of like, oh, I'm working so hard also at maintaining everything, like, that's going to maintain the depression, right? Because like that's an exhausting thing to be doing all the time versus being more open with, hey, I'm struggling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can you really like wake up? I always say to my mom, I'll call her and when I'm having like my little breakdown or, my inner dialogue's taken over and I'm like, I need to talk about this. Does anybody really wake up and can you say, oh, I look like a bad bitch. I got this thriving career. My marriage is 100. I have the best friends in the world. Like, it's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if you'll ever really feel that way, right?
Right.
But you're talking like a continuous kind of everyday dread of waking up and doing your life, like getting up out of bed, doing all those things.
Yeah. It's consistent, like everything feels effortful, for me, and it's accompanied with this, sadness, that I'm feeling, but I'm not expressing. And I don't know if Dr. Alex got into this as much, but, our emotions are all here for a reason. They all have like evolutionary function to them, and they are here to help us for our survival. And when we, ignore, block, push down, suppress, avoid those emotions, they're only going to get louder too. Because they're here for a reason. And so that's why, this high functioning depression might actually last longer, because eventually the sadness is going to be like, hang on, pay attention to me. Like, I'm here for a reason.
So does high functioning depression come in episodes as in other depression?
So I would say that at some point, high functioning depression left untreated or left not paid attention to at some point will worsen, and eventually meet criteria, for one of the disorders that our Diagnostic Statistic Manual, our DSM, just says, yep, this actually does, reach criteria. I don't necessarily think it's possible for people to continue to mask their emotions and avoid without them worsening too. That's just not the way the human brain works.
What kind of other treatments for functional depression are there?
Yeah, so we would, recommend the same, types of treatment. It might be that someone who is in this like bucket of more high functioning depression can, more quickly adjust to some of the treatment recommendations. One of the main treatments for recommendation is this, or for depression, is this idea of behavioral activation. So it is a behavioral treatment in which someone is scheduling pleasant events for themselves. It's thought that depression is really maintained when the brain doesn't have enough access to pleasure. So we kind of purposely schedule pleasant events, almost as if like you're going to a doctor's appointment, but it's a pleasant event for someone.
So you can kind of rewire your brain?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Can you sign me up? I'm ready.
Yeah. I'm like, what are we doing after this? So it might be that the high functioning person like has a little bit more ability to shift into that mode, but we're really looking at these cognitive behavioral treatments regardless of severity too. And like I said, there's no such thing as something needing to get worse in order to be able to get help or get treatment.
Yeah.
So you would say your key of tips for somebody who was, looking to try to work on this a little bit, you would suggest mostly finding ways in their life to give them something to look forward to, like once a week? Is it a day? Is that subjective to the person and how severe their, depression is?
Frequency definitely subjective to the person, though I would also say in addition to scheduling these pleasant events for yourself, I don't want to tell the high functioning person, hey, do more,
Right.
on top of what you're already doing. Like, I want to tell them like engage in some pleasant events, but that might also look like, hey, let's have you slow down a bit. And I really want to tell someone, let's slow down and recognize there's something going on here. Your brain is trying to send you a message. Actually, remember, our emotions are here for a reason. The function of sadness is to, send an alarm system through our body and brain for when we have lost something so that we're motivated to retrieve it. So for the high functioning person, it might be that they've actually lost their ability to slow down and to like not be functioning, right? Because all humans need a break.
Right.
So I might tell the person, like, in addition to, let's do more, let's schedule something pleasant. I might say like, hey, how do you feel about like not having something scheduled?
Right. So lifestyle changes.
Exactly. And that can be really uncomfortable for some people to actually think about like, oh, I'm going to do less. Like, what does that mean? Like, I feel uncomfortable relaxing unless I've gotten like X, Y, and Z done. And then that becomes like a whole, are we looking at?
You gotta point down. Yeah, or no, point this way.
I'm pointing to you.
I'm laughing.
He's the first one to be like, I did this. Like, oh, how was your day? And it's 10 things he did.
Yeah.
And still like, oh, that's just like some on my list. And I'll say, just take a breath. Like, you don't have to, just because you write a list doesn't mean it has to be all done in one day. But if he doesn't complete it, then it's like his whole day to him is
done,
like
it's shit. I'm
like he feels like he didn't accomplish anything. And I'm like, you accomplished 9 out of 10. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Growing up as a kid, I remember my mom always saying I bit off way more than I could chew sometimes. And then that would then bleed into me having this overwhelming sense of anxiety because then I felt like I could never catch up or complete all these things. For me, my brain works. If I think it, I want it out of the way. Like I want it off my plate, like I have to do it right then and there because I feel a sense of relief. Like, oh, I've done what is wanted of me. I can't have things linger because then that makes me feel like, oh my, like I just feel this sense of like I can never relax.
Yeah.
But then the problem with that is I keep adding this never ending list of things that keep continuing and continuing.
Yes. But then also when I'll say, just take a day, just take a day and do nothing. Then hours later, when I call him back and be like, oh, did you do it? No, I took your advice. I didn't do nothing today. Now nothing then it becomes like this whole
like
wheel. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul, you can get yourself to relax or maybe do less. I don't even know if doing less actually is relaxing for you, but then you are judging yourself.
Oh my God, 100%. That's
Yeah.
why while you were talking about this, I have a therapist that I'm doing CBT.
Yeah.
And it was funny that you said you were very careful about your words that you use. And you said, I tell clients not to maybe do more because then that becomes overwhelming because my therapist had said, I don't want to add more onto your plate. because
Yeah.
you already do so much. So how can we reframe this where we make you do less but enjoy something that you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And, the reality might also be, Paul, that for you, like doing more, the harder option sometimes might actually be taking a break.
Yeah.
It might be that it's actually a lot harder for you to sit there and see something on your to-do list and be like, I'm going to practice the not completing this. Because I'm imagining that you are way over practiced in the category of like, I'll fit it in, I'll squeeze it in, I'll make it work.
I'll
Oh,
make it
I'm
work.
like, I'm writing it. I should write a book on this shit. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
if you want to know a toxic trait of how to overextend yourself and be stressed out every day, I got you on that.
Yes.
Because then what happens before he goes to bed, it's in his head. And then he's up till 2 a.m. because he's like, I just have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this like, right, like if we haven't crossed off the list, that like chronic judgment or overthinking afterwards, it's like our brain is just punishing ourselves for not doing the, task on the list. So I
Yeah.
tend to talk with my clients about like, okay, we know that this is actually going to be harder for you to do less. So how are we going to reward you actually for doing less? Like, what would feel rewarding for you so that you're not sitting there being like, I'm the worst person ever for not, completing this. And sometimes the initial reward is just me sitting there with them, like, yes, like you didn't turn that thing in when you wanted to, and like that's actually awesome for you.
That's me. That's me as his cheerleader. I'm like, oh my God, you sat and watched a whole movie and didn't do it. Good for like, oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Or
Yes.
Mom, I didn't get out of bed till 10 to, oh my gosh, I'm so like, that's great. Or I took a nap. Like I'm that to him.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm
She is like
totally,
that.
and I'm more of a laid back person. So I'm always that person to be like, you don't have to do it right now. Just relax. Just take a break.
Just give her something from your to-do list then.
I think she'd be stressed out, to be honest. If she saw. What I view success is, having to always be on the go. Somebody who's like thriving and is hungry and wants something. I'm like, there's no time for rest, relaxation, pampering myself. There's so much things to be done. But then I have to pull myself back and think, oh my God, I'm letting life pass by me, going in this such a fight or flight mindset that it's always like that. I'm like, I'm not even enjoying the things that are in front of me half the time because I'm so one track minded.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not alone in that by any means. I think so many people, and I'm sure people listening can really resonate and relate to feeling like, they set very high standards for themselves and constantly need to be not just meeting them, but exceeding them. It can be really hard to wrap our heads around the idea that actually the most successful people know how to approach their work flexibly. They know how to take a break from it. They know how to ask for help and not take on everything by themselves. But it's so hard because our world has reinforced us and rewarded us sometimes too for like just crossing off everything off the list and doing it all by yourself. And we get promotions for this type of work. But if we can wrap our heads around the idea that like long term you'll be a more successful person, you won't burn out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You give yourself breaks, right? Like, we've got to think about longevity and long term when it comes to our mental health.
Like goal wise, you have to set goals that are obtainable each day, not think of like, today I'm doing 20 things and then you do 19. Like, I think it has to be an obtainable goal every day, also, right?
Mm-hmm. So, attainable meaning like realistic and fair.
Yeah.
To ourselves. Yeah, absolutely. We can be so quick to really setting up goals that are so, just unattainable.
Yeah.
I think on the flip side, sometimes I think in the same vein of the person who's like setting up so many different things for themselves to do and crossing off everything on the to-do list, and that can look like high functioning depression. On the other hand, we also see a profile of someone who may be engaging in more of the avoidance. It might be that they have a long to-do list, but they're kind of chronically avoiding it because they are, afraid to begin or worried that when they do, it might not be exactly how they want it to look.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That is sometimes, I think, the profile that looks actually less high functioning, and we might see first as that more like chronically depressed individual, when really, they might just be kind of a perfectionist, but in a different way. Too.
Would you be at liberty to say, in your studies and experience, would you classify high functioning depression patients as successful people for the most part?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's because, people who likely meet this condition of high functioning depression, they have this superior ability to control their emotions and tolerate distress, right? Like they're able sometimes to have a poker face. That's an awesome skill in some context, right? Like to
Yeah.
not always be revealing exactly what we're feeling can be super adaptive, when you are like negotiating a new salary with your boss, and to be able to tolerate distress and, put your head down and delay gratification and work towards a long-term goal. Like these are very adaptive qualities. In the case of high functioning depression, it starts to be